You're streaming CBS News Bay Area.
A Bay Area couple and their son are missing after the devastating and deadly floods in Texas. How a family vacation turned into a desperate search.
Fine people, nice people, sweet people, friendly, so friendly. Say hi to everyone, you know.
We're on the front lines of a fast-moving wildfire that caught local first responders completely off guard.
We had the wrong equipment, and we didn't have the tools.
The lessons learned 40 years ago that leave us better prepared today. And plans for a new Bay Area skyrise are on hold after the developer files for bankruptcy. We hear from housing advocates who say the fight isn't over.
We don't have an affordable housing crisis. We have a housing crisis that's affordable.
Thanks for joining us this Tuesday. I'm Ann Makovic. We're going to have those stories and lots more coming up right after our news headlines. The number of people killed from the flash flooding in central Texas has risen to at least 108. That includes at least 27 campers and counselors at an all-girls Christian summer camp. About a dozen campers are still missing. Rescue teams are using drones equipped with thermal sensors to try to find any survivors.
Hundreds of first responders remain along the Guadalupe River in Kerr County working to reunite families. This is a tragic time for us. We're so grateful and thankful for all the resources that have been provided to us to do this job. And I can assure you we will not stop until this mission is complete.
Here's a look at some time-lapse video from Friday, and you can just see how fast the floodwaters came in. The Guadalupe River outside of San Antonio rose 26 feet in just 45 minutes.
I woke up to the sound of thunder, and I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was just like any other storm, and until I heard some odd noises coming from deeper in the house. And so I get up to investigate, and when I swing my feet over the side of the bed, I realized I was standing in water.
And President Trump declared a major disaster for the state. He says he plans to visit Texas on Friday. A Bay Area family still missing in the wake of that catastrophic flooding. Mark and Sarah Walker, along with their 14-year-old son, Johnny, were visiting Hunt, Texas, while their daughter camped near the river. They are from Kentfield in Marin County. Their daughter, 16-year-old Ellie, was rescued, but the rest of the Walker family is still missing.
They want to test off a family vacation break, hard time for our community.
According to the Press Democrat, Ellie is a student at Marin Catholic High School where her brother Johnny is enrolled as an incoming freshman. California is sending aid to Texas. Governor Newsom deploying the state's urban search and rescue teams. The governor's office says these teams have a lot of experience in rescue operations. That includes September 11th and Hurricane Katrina. In other news, we have just learned that a police officer in San Jose has just been arrested. Not clear what the officer was arrested for at this point, but we are expecting to learn more within the next few hours, and we'll let you know. California defying the federal government's demand to ban transgender athletes from girls' and women's sports. The U.S. Department of Education threatened to pull $8 billion in federal funds if the state continued to allow them to compete. They drew up a resolution to force California to concede after a federal investigation found the state violated Title IX. Now state officials have formally refused to sign that resolution, and this sets the stage for a legal battle. All right, let's get a check on our first alert forecast this Tuesday. It is our last day of some cooler temperatures. Before we turn the heat up a bit, here's meteorologist Zoe Mintz.
Happy Tuesday. We are going to continue to see very similar conditions to what we saw yesterday, although you might notice our coastal community is actually a degree or two warmer than yesterday because the cloud coverage isn't nearly as thick in the early morning hours, and there might even be a few more peaks of sunshine. So upper 60s in San Francisco, mid to lower 60s closer to the coast, mid to upper 70s for areas around the bay, and then farther inland, we're actually a degree or two cooler than yesterday, sitting in the mid 80s. But it's all relative for this time of year. We are going to continue to see a bit of a heat up on the way later this upcoming week. So maybe you want to head out to the game tonight. It is going to be a beautiful one. If you want to root on the Giants, mid 60s, plenty of sunshine, at least for the beginning part of the game, getting cooler by the end of the night. But just in general, I want to let you all know that we have actually been seeing warming temperatures during our baseball season. At Oracle Park, we've been warming about 2.5 degrees since 1970. And did you know that warmer weather actually brings us more home runs? Yeah, we've actually seen about 50 more home runs just because of warming temperatures. And those warming temperatures, again, are going to create some more potential home runs in the coming years. Although we aren't necessarily seeing those warmer temperatures today, it's actually seasonable, if not a few degrees below average this afternoon. It's not until later this week, again, that we are going to be seeing those warming conditions. So later this week, again, we are going to be looking at a bit of a heat up. A heat up is all, again, relative. We'll be seasonable today, tomorrow, mid to upper 70s by Thursday, and then getting back down to more reasonable temperatures later this upcoming week and into this weekend. It's inland areas that we are slightly more concerned about with mid to upper 90s. So if you want to escape the heat inland, head on over to the coast or the bay, where it is going to be a little bit more comfortable.
More now on the Marin County family that is missing in Texas. The mother of the missing father tells the Chronicle the family was washed away while their 16-year-old daughter Ellie was at summer camp. Marin Catholic is going to hold a prayer service tonight for the family in the St. Francis Chapel, hoping for a miracle. Our Veronica Macias is at that campus.
This tragedy hitting particularly hard because so much of the loss involves children, just like it does with the Walker family, who has a 14-year-old son. Families who had intended to go to summer camps for children to build friendships, make memories along the Guadalupe River. The Walker's teenage daughter was enjoying days at a summer camp. Elle is reported to be safe this morning. However, parents Mark and Sarah and her brother Johnny, they remain missing. Johnny, just 14 years old, was set to be a freshman this upcoming year at Marin Catholic High School. It's a heartbreaking loss for so many in Marin County. It seems like in some way or another, everyone knew the Walker family. They were very involved in youth sports. Mark's brother, actually a former Giants pitcher, Tyler Walker. Mark himself, a baseball coach for the Ross Valley Little League. The organization telling CBS News Bay Area it is focusing on supporting its community and the Walker family privately. The league organized a prayer vigil for the family Sunday night where hundreds of people attended. As the community holds out hope, some people have started leaving flowers outside of the Walker family home. People telling us they were just the nicest family.
Fine people, nice people, sweet people, friendly, so friendly. Say hi to everyone, you know. Hey, how you doing? Hey, what's going on? I don't know how can I accept Sarah is not here with us. I pray every night for them to find them, or find the body, or find something.
Marin Catholic High School has declined to comment at the request of the Walker family. That vigil being held here at 6 p.m.
Right now, you can help the victims of the devastating floods in Texas. The QR code there on your screen will take you to a list of organizations helping with relief for communities. Still ahead here on CBS News Bay Area. It was 4 decades ago when the Lexington fire forced frantic evacuations in the South Bay. Now we are hearing from a pair of firefighters who were on the front lines, how they say our state is better prepared thanks to the lessons learned from that fire.
So I'm looking down here and I can see the columns of smoke going up, and come on guys, let's get this thing out.
Plus, plans for a high-rise in San Francisco brought some fierce opposition. Why those plans are now on hold, and why housing advocates say the fight isn't over.
It's not because we don't want change and we don't relish change. This side has seen so much change.
We're just going back.
And U.S. military troops and federal agents take over a public park in Los Angeles. Details on what some call a massive show of force and the mayor's call to the Trump administration.
In the Bay Area, a new WNBA franchise is taking flight. Catch this first-in-a-lifetime inaugural season as the Golden State Valkyries play live on KPIX and Pix Plus.
We're going to continue to see very typical July conditions throughout the day today and into tomorrow, at least for areas around the bay and closer to the coast. Early morning fog giving way to afternoon sunshine. But the big day to look out for is definitely going to be Thursday, when those high temperatures are going to be a couple of degrees above average for areas around the bay and up to nearly 10 degrees above average for our more inland communities, getting into the mid to upper 90s. So Thursday is the day to look out for if you enjoy the heat, but also some more comfortable conditions over the next couple days.
In the last few years, California has unfortunately had a lot of experience fighting large wildland fires, and the state's getting pretty good at it. That is due in part to a brush fire that scorched the Santa Cruz Mountains 4 decades ago. We're talking about the Lexington fire. It sparked near the Lexington Reservoir in July of 1985, and as John Ramos explains, it taught a lot of lessons that are being put into practice today.
It became known as the Lexington Fire. The blaze roared through the rural area near Los Gatos, and a local news reporter named Lee Eggerman documented what happened.
Fueled by dry brush and temperatures that hovered near the 100-degree mark, the fire swept to the south, consuming brush and trees at a rate of 1 acre a minute.
The weather conditions pushed the fire forward, but there was little air support available, so firefighters were left to battle the blaze from the ground. Doug Sporlater, now 83 years old, was an incident commander and remembers what it looked like at the command center at Vasona Park.
This is where 3,000 firefighters came.
Had you ever seen this big an operation before?
I had not. This county had not. It was completely new. The weather report was given to us and said this is going to get really serious this afternoon.
So he made a request to the state's emergency services officer.
I need 25 strike teams, 125 engines this afternoon. We're going to have a problem, it's going to blow up, and he got them. And it was remarkable that...
Had they ever done something like that before?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Doug still has the T-shirt from the fire listing the 200 departments that pitched in to help. At the time, it was the largest mutual aid effort in U.S. history.
Does that mean a lot to you?
It does. Obviously, I kept it all these years, you know.
But just because they had lots of people and equipment, there was still a lot to learn. Harold Schapelhoman was a rookie wildland firefighter who was assigned to the largest engine with the worst turning radius. His hoses were the wrong kind for wildfires, and they only had one shovel for the 3-man crew.
We had the wrong equipment, and we didn't have the tools.
You were even asking for a water jug.
Correct.
You had no
toothpaste,
water jug?
toothbrush, tent, sleeping bag would all have been great. Didn't have anything. We didn't have anything for breathing, so we would use like a wet, neck scarf, handkerchief, whatever you want to call it. I mean, all that, is completely different today.
If things are different today, that may in part be because of the letter Schapelhoman wrote to his superiors suggesting changes for the future. But the rookie also learned a lesson about the chain of command.
So you kind of learn that as a young firefighter. They don't necessarily need it in writing. You can tell somebody of rank, and then hopefully it's their idea, or they don't need some smart young guy telling them what to do.
It was a learning experience all around. Because of the Lexington fire, state and local departments changed the way they organize mutual aid, coordinate radio frequencies, and allocate air resources. Even the command structure for large events was changed.
How much did this contribute to improving firefighting?
100%. It's completely different, and it works extremely well.
And that may be a good thing for those who survived the Lexington fire. The area burned in 1961 and recovered, then again in 1985. Now Doug says the conditions are right for it to burn again.
Well, the Lexington fire burned for 6 days before the weather changed, giving firefighters a chance to bring it under control. It burned more than 21 square miles and destroyed 42 structures, but luckily nobody was hurt. New details now on what led up to a police shooting and killing in San Jose. Officers say that man confronted them with 4 guns when they went into his backyard. This happened Sunday afternoon at a home on Recife Way. Police say Kareem Khan lived in an ADU behind his parents' house. The parents called to say he was off his medications and was threatening them. Police say when they got there, Khan pointed a gun at them and then went inside his ADU. Officers retreated and tried to negotiate with him on the phone. It was after a 20-minute phone call. Police say Khan hung up and came outside and shot at officers. You can see a bullet hole there in an SJPD patrol car. The police chief says they believe the car's engine stopped the bullet and could have saved officers from being shot. Now, by this point, officers had positioned themselves in a yard behind the property. The chief says Khan jumped into that neighboring yard holding 4 guns and 50 rounds of ammo. The police chief didn't say who shot first, but said Khan engaged shots with an officer. They found Khan had been hit by at least 1 gunshot and died at the scene.
This incident is a tragedy primarily because there was such easy access to firearms during a mental health crisis. These calls are always unpredictable, but are too often among the most dangerous situations our officers face. They escalate without warning, but when a gun is not involved, can many times be de-escalated just as quickly.
Police say those guns were not registered to Khan. They are working to find out how he got them. They said the 911 caller did not tell police that the man had weapons, putting officers in danger when they got to that scene. A proposed high-rise in San Francisco's Sunset neighborhood is now on hold. Some neighbors have told us they were worried that the towering development would ruin the character of their neighborhood, but developers said it would provide much-needed housing.
It's why people moved out here in the first place. They loved the neighborhood. Changing it with a super high skyrise, making it downtown or Miami, is not going to make what people love and adore about our neighborhood.
The proposed high-rise was actually the second plan for the site at 2700 Slope Boulevard, but now the company behind it filed for bankruptcy. Suji Nam spoke with people on both sides of the debate.
We don't need to rip down single-family homes to put in more housing. We don't have an affordable housing crisis. We have a housing crisis that's affordable.
Renee Lazier, the co-founder of Save Our Neighborhoods San Francisco, is passionate about keeping the culture and history of the Sunset District alive. When she learned the developer of a proposed 22-story high-rise condo along 2700 Slope Boulevard filed for bankruptcy, she was somewhat relieved.
It's postponed right now, but they're still working on trying to find somebody to sell it to so they can build other things.
A previous proposal was to build a 50-floor skyrise tower after demolishing what is currently the Slope Garden Center. That was quickly rejected by the city. The most recent plan, had it been approved, would have built nearly 450 units with affordable senior housing. But Lazier says that is not a sustainable option.
Building 3 stories and putting maybe 20 units in there, that would be for affordable housing, truly affordable housing, not luxury condos.
Jane Natoli, the San Francisco organizing director of YIMBY Action, is disappointed the Sunset Tower proposal was rejected.
We're just going back and forth. At this point, we've had approximately 5 different proposals for that site over the course of about a decade, and nothing's happened.
San Francisco leaders are working on updating rezoning laws that could allow for taller structures to be built in areas where it historically wasn't allowed. The city also has a goal to add more than 82,000 housing units by 2031.
It should be easier to build more homes throughout San Francisco. We've historically developed them on the east side, and we previously did a rezoning plan to make that easier 20 plus years ago. And when we're going about the rezoning right now, it's really about trying to help shift that.
While Natoli is pushing for more housing citywide, including in neighborhoods like the Sunset District, where there are more single-family homes, Lazier says that is not the best path forward.
It's not because we don't want change and we don't relish change. This side has seen so much change since they started building out here in the late 1800s.
Well, we reached out to Mayor Daniel Lurie's office as well as District 4 Supervisor Joel Ingardio's office for comment and have not yet heard back. We also reached out to the developer's attorney, still waiting for that response as well. Still ahead, tactical vehicles and heavily armed agents marching through a park in Los Angeles. The mayor blasting the move as a scare tactic.
It is outrageous and un-American that we have federal armed vehicles in our parks.
The mayor's call to the Trump administration. Well,
While here in the Bay Area, it's not necessarily going to be triple digits, as you can actually kind of see the impact of the onshore flow, keeping this one little area in the Central Valley that I'm currently standing on slightly cooler. But what it will do is it's not going to allow our high temperatures to be as extreme as they could be, like if you do head out into the Central Valley. So it all depends on location as we step out over the next several days, as location early this morning is very important if you want to enjoy the sunrise. Like I talked about, that cloud coverage quickly peeling back. I love showing you all a beautiful time lapse because there is still going to be more on again, off again fog and cloud coverage along our coastal communities. Temperatures right now sitting pretty comfortable. But like I said, this afternoon, warmer along the coast, cooler farther inland compared to normal. But the wind gusts are not going to be nearly as high today as yesterday. All of us are going to be around 20 to 30 miles an hour. By tomorrow, they will continue to quiet down. That's going to allow for those warmer temperatures. And then, like I said, 90s returning Thursday and staying slightly above average through the later parts of the upcoming week and into the weekend. So if you want to escape the heat, like I said, I suggest heading on over to the coast where some beautiful beach weather is on the way later this weekend into the weekend. Back to you.
Now to Los Angeles, where a confrontation unfolded when ICE agents and members of Homeland Security marched through a public park. Reporter Tom Waite has more on the feds' battle with LA's sanctuary city laws.
It looked like an armed military invasion. 14 Humvees, tactical vehicles, federal agents, and National Guard troops, some on horseback, fanning out and marching through MacArthur Park. A surreal show of force by the military and federal officers, not on foreign soil, but in a park where kids were supposed to be at day camp, where street vendors usually work, in the heart of one of LA's densest immigrant neighborhoods.
Can't have this, man.
As the dramatic scene was unfolding, LA Mayor Karen Bass showed up, confronted an agent, used his phone to make a call, and demanded that agents leave ASAP. After about an hour, agents and the Guard troops left. No reported arrests or an explanation. DHS telling us they won't comment on ongoing operations. At City Hall a short time later, an exasperated Mayor Bass tore into the Trump administration.
To me, this is another example of the administration ratcheting up chaos by deploying what looked like a military operation in an American city. Now, you can spin it any way you like, but in my opinion, it's a political agenda of provoking fear and terror.
Staffers with a nonprofit providing medical services to people in the park shot this video of agents moving in and claim they were threatened.
They pointed guns at us, they surrounded our van.
This is the man reportedly in charge of immigration operations in LA, Border Patrol Chief Greg Bovino. These photos were taken of him on scene at MacArthur Park. Fox News reporting this is the man Bass spoke to when she demanded agents leave. A Fox News reporter asked Bovino about the conversation. He said he made it clear, quote, "I don't work for Karen Bass. Better get used to us now because this is going to be normal very soon. We will go anywhere, anytime we want in Los Angeles." Bass was asked about that statement.
I know he works for the President of the United States. Maybe he needs to work for Karen Bass.
Governor Newsom also blasted the operation. He was in LA to hold a joint press conference with Bass to mark the 6-month anniversary of the horrific Eaton and Palisades fires.
What a disgrace, what's happening in MacArthur Park. What theater. On the 6-month anniversary, after all, of these fires. That's the message from the polluted heart of the President of the United States.
Sentiments echoed by LA Assemblyman Mark Gonzalez.
It's propaganda at its finest, and this is what this president does. He's treating people like this is a reality show, and we can't let them get away with it.
The operation ended without incident and also with many unanswered questions.
Everybody in Southern California knows MacArthur Park has problems, but that's a local police issue. It doesn't call for a reboot of Apocalypse Now.
Well, more than 4,000 California National Guard troops and hundreds of U.S. Marines have been deployed in Los Angeles since June. Last week, the military announced about 200 of those troops would be returned to their units to fight wildfires. Coming up in the next half hour here on CBS News Bay Area, the area of Texas that flooded is known as Flash Flood Alley. So why didn't it have a siren warning system? Plus, nearly a week since a deadly explosion at a fireworks warehouse, we are hearing from a father who's waiting for answers after losing his son.
You're streaming CBS News Bay Area.
Thanks for staying with us on this Tuesday. I'm Ann Makovic. Here's another look at some of our news headlines. The number of people killed in the flash flooding in Texas has risen to at least 108. That includes at least 27 campers and counselors at an all-girls Christian summer camp. Hundreds of rescue workers and volunteers are sifting through debris, hoping to find those still missing. President Trump declared a major disaster for the state. He says he plans to visit Texas on Friday, and Governor Newsom has deployed the state's urban search and rescue teams to help out. A Bay Area family still missing in the wake of that catastrophic flooding. Mark and Sarah Walker, along with their 14-year-old son, Johnny, were visiting Hunt, Texas, while their daughter camped near the river. They are from Kentfield in Marin County, and their 16-year-old daughter, Ellie, was rescued, but the rest of the Walker family is still missing. California defying the federal government's demand to ban transgender athletes from girls' and women's sports. The U.S. Department of Education threatened to pull $8 billion in federal funds if the state continued to allow them to compete. They drew up a resolution to force California to concede after a federal investigation found the state violated Title IX. Now, state officials have formally refused to sign that resolution, and that sets the stage for a legal battle. Let's get another check on our first alert forecast this Tuesday. A little bit of a warm-up in store. Here's meteorologist Zoe Mintz.
Happy Tuesday. We are going to continue to see very similar conditions to what we saw yesterday, although you might notice our coastal community is actually a degree or two warmer than yesterday because the cloud coverage isn't nearly as thick in the early morning hours, and there might even be a few more peaks of sunshine. So upper 60s in San Francisco, mid to lower 60s closer to the coast, mid to upper 70s for areas around the bay, and then farther inland we're actually a degree or two cooler than yesterday, sitting in the mid 80s. But it's all relative for this time of year. We are going to continue to see a bit of a heat up on the way later this upcoming week. So maybe you want to head out to the game tonight. It is going to be a beautiful one. If you want to root on the Giants, mid 60s, plenty of sunshine, at least for the beginning part of the game, getting cooler by the end of the night. But just in general, I want to let you all know that we have actually been seeing warming temperatures during our baseball season. At Oracle Park, we've been warming about 2.5 degrees since 1970. And did you know that warmer weather actually brings us more home runs? Yeah, we've actually seen about 50 more home runs just because of warming temperatures. And those warming temperatures, again, are going to create some more potential home runs in the coming years. Although we aren't necessarily seeing those warmer temperatures today, it's actually seasonable, if not a few degrees below average this afternoon. It's not until later this week, again, that we are going to be seeing those warming conditions. So later this week, again, we are going to be looking at a bit of a heat up. A heat up is all, again, relative. We'll be seasonable today, tomorrow, mid to upper 70s by Thursday, and then getting back down to more reasonable temperatures later this upcoming week and into this weekend. It's inland areas that we are slightly more concerned about with mid to upper 90s. So if you want to escape the heat inland, head on over to the coast or the bay where it is going to be a little bit more comfortable.
In Central Texas, first responders and volunteers are still searching for people in the devastating flooding that killed more than 100 people, including at least 27 campers and counselors at Camp Mystic. Almost a dozen girls from the camp are still missing. Reporter Karen Hua is in Kerrville, where questions are mounting about early warning systems and evacuation orders.
Rescue teams continue to search for anyone who might still be alive along the Guadalupe River in central Texas. They're using drones equipped with thermal sensors to try to spot any survivors.
I can assure you we will not stop until this mission is complete.
State and local officials are coming under scrutiny over the planning for storms as deadly as this one. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick told CBS that Texas could fund warning sirens, and he thinks legislators can take it up this month.
So had all those sirens going off, maybe that would spark people to say, we have a massive disaster like 5 minutes away.
Hard-hit Kerr County is part of an area known as Flash Flood Alley, but it's never invested in a siren warning system.
Everyone would agree in hindsight, if we could go back and do it again, we would evacuate particularly those in the most vulnerable areas, the young children in the cabins closest to the water. We would remove them and get them to higher ground.
Along with the destruction here and crushing human loss, residents are also sharing stories of survival. With the Guadalupe River rising, Christian Fell says he struggled to find higher ground as the water rose all around him Friday morning.
I realized the window was broken, so I swam through the window and
I was standing on that meter box right there for the next 3 hours.
Among the rubble that used to be Camp Mystic, Fletcher Cordell searched for anything left behind by his 11-year-old daughter, Olivia.
She had her charm bracelet laid out, and she's been asking about that a lot.
Olivia survived the deadly flooding, rescued by helicopter. Cordell says she's only starting to process the disaster, and the bracelet is important to her.
I'll stay here as long as I can till it's, found, and if I don't find it, I'll come back.
Hundreds of girls were at Camp Mystic early Friday morning when the floodwaters started raging. About a dozen campers are still missing.
Well, you can help the victims of the devastating floods in Texas. Scan that QR code there on your screen. That will take you to a list of organizations helping with relief for communities. It has been nearly a week since that explosion that killed 7 people at a fireworks facility in Yolo County. And families are asking why a property that was not permitted for anything other than agriculture was storing and selling explosives. Madison Keevy has more on the investigation in the tiny community of Esparto.
And this is a incredibly complicated incident and investigation. There are so many layers to this.
New insights from the Esparto fire chief on Monday, nearly a week to the day since that deadly explosion at a fireworks facility on property owned by a Yolo County lieutenant.
Staring at that incident, knowing what was occurring, we had to make the most appropriate decision to protect the rest of the lives that were at stake. And so we made the decision to conduct the operation that we did, which was more of a defensive operation in mitigating the spread of the incident.
The chief says the state fire marshal is the lead agency now and couldn't answer questions about the investigation.
We have an obligation as an agency and as humans to make sure that we protect the integrity of this investigation. As much as you all want answers and the family want answers to these things, we have an obligation to make sure that this is done the right way and done thoroughly.
In the silence, a father's pain. Johnny Ramos Sr. stays close by for answers he's been waiting on. Disappointed, he says, by officials again today.
We are not animals. We're human. My child is no more here, and they don't care,
Well, family members have identified 4 of the victims, including Ramos's 2 sons, 18-year-old Jesus and 22-year-old Johnny Jr. Authorities are promising families some clarity in the coming days from rapid DNA testing. Coming up next, a new development in the fight between California and the Trump administration over transgender athletes in sports. The act of defiance by the state that could lead to a legal battle.
In the Bay Area, a new WNBA franchise is taking flight. Catch this first-in-a-lifetime inaugural season as the Golden State Valkyries play live on KPIX and Pix Plus.
We're going to continue to see very typical July conditions throughout the day today and into tomorrow, at least for areas around the bay and closer to the coast. Early morning fog giving way to afternoon sunshine. But the big day to look out for is definitely going to be Thursday, when those high temperatures are going to be a couple of degrees above average for areas around the bay and up to nearly 10 degrees above average for our more inland communities, getting into the mid to upper 90s. So Thursday is the day to look out for if you enjoy the heat, but also some more comfortable conditions over the next couple days.
Well, California is standing its ground against the Trump administration when it comes to transgender student athletes. And that could pave the way for another legal battle between the state and President Trump. Reporter Steve Large has the details.
California refuses to follow the law.
Republican lawmakers sounding off in the state capitol.
The insanity continues.
Over this California Department of Education letter declaring it will not sign a resolution drawn up by the federal government that would force the state to concede and apologize for violating biological female athletes' civil rights by allowing trans athletes to compete in girls' sports.
At the end of the day, it's our duty to protect and keep the civil rights of girls in sports.
This has gotten to the point where it's not even about the merits of anything.
Democratic State Senator Scott Wiener serves in the California LGBTQ caucus.
They're doing this because it's red meat for their base, and they just want to demonize trans people.
The U.S. Department of Education is threatening to pull $8 billion in federal funds from California for allowing trans athletes to compete in girls' sports.
I've been warning Governor Newsom and the state's supermajority for a long time that this is going to be the consequence. And now here we are.
Would you do something like that? Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness.
Governor Newsom announced on his podcast in April with conservative activist Charlie Kirk he believed trans athletes in women's sports is unfair, opening himself up to criticism from both Democrats and Republicans.
As is the case with Gavin many times, he says something and then he does nothing about it.
Governor Newsom, obviously, I don't agree with what he said on that podcast.
California's Department of Education doubling down on its policy allowing trans athletes in girls' sports, setting up the next political fight over federal funding.
Well, pretty soon, you're going to be able to keep your shoes on at the airport. CBS News has confirmed the TSA is phasing out its nearly 20-year policy requiring airline passengers to remove their shoes at TSA checkpoints. The plan getting a slow rollout at several airports across the country. We checked out SFO this morning, where the shoes stayed on.
I think it's great, especially when I have my flip-flops on. My feet don't have to touch the floor.
I'm okay with leaving shoes on. I think it'll speed up things a little bit.
I think it's great to speed things up.
If they ask me to take my shoes off, I take my shoes off. No problem with that.
Well, the policy went into effect in 2006, several years after Richard Reed tried to blow up an American Airlines plane with explosives hidden inside his shoe. His attempt was unsuccessful, but pointed out a weak spot in security screening measures. Tomorrow, going to be a rematch between the Golden State Valkyries and Caitlin Clark and the Fever. The Valkyries hoping to rebound after last night's loss to the Dream. Matt Lively is in Atlanta with the highlights.
The Valkyries' road struggles continued on Monday night. They came into Atlanta and weren't able to get the job done, entering the fourth quarter with a lead, but ending the game on the other side.
It was just a gritty game overall. I think we started out throwing punches. I think the Dream ended throwing punches, and we just weren't able to match that.
One major stat difference was the turnovers. Atlanta able to take it away from the Valkyries 21 times, while they lost it themselves just 10.
I just feel like everyone made a contribution. We didn't get hurt from just one specific person. It was just everyone.
Has there been a difference in play on the road versus at home that you've noticed?
I don't want to say that. I don't want to make any excuses. We're the same 12. Coach Nat challenged our defense and our energy. That's things that are under our control. And so I think those are the things that we're going to be focused on going in the next game.
How do you quickly flip the page to go to Indiana?
We just talked about it right now. It's got to be a quick reset. They're talking now, which is great. That's what I want to see. Is like usually when a team doesn't, show up, or literally a family doesn't show up, they get together and they talk even more, which I like.
The Valkyries won't have time to sulk about this one. They travel to Indiana and have an early game Wednesday against the Fever.
As Matt just mentioned, Valkyries now heading to Indiana to take on Caitlin Clark and the Fever tomorrow. You can watch that game on KPIX and streaming on Paramount Plus. It is an early one. That game starts at 9 a.m. Coming up, sensors underground are giving us more information about seismic activity, and it's shaking up what we thought we knew about earthquakes.
We want to catch an earthquake right as it's beginning.
Well, here in the Bay Area, it's not necessarily going to be triple digits, as you can actually kind of see the impact of the onshore flow, keeping this one little area in the Central Valley that I'm currently standing on slightly cooler. But what it will do is it's not going to allow our high temperatures to be as extreme as they could be, like if you do head out into the Central Valley. So it all depends on location as we step out over the next several days, as location early this morning is very important if you want to enjoy the sunrise. Like I talked about, that cloud coverage quickly peeling back. I love showing you all a beautiful time lapse because there is still going to be more on again, off again fog and cloud coverage along our coastal communities. Temperatures right now sitting pretty comfortable. But like I said, this afternoon, warmer along the coast, cooler farther inland compared to normal. But the wind gusts are not going to be nearly as high today as yesterday. All of us are going to be around 20 to 30 miles an hour. By tomorrow, they will continue to quiet down. That's going to allow for those warmer temperatures. And then, like I said, 90s returning Thursday and staying slightly above average through the later parts of the upcoming week and into the weekend. So if you want to escape the heat, like I said, I suggest heading on over to the coast where some beautiful beach weather is on the way later this weekend into the weekend. Back to you.
All right, get out those credit cards. Amazon Prime Day is here, one of the biggest online shopping days of the year. So big, in fact, it's apparently now running through Friday. Prime Days, plural. Americans expected to spend almost $24 billion during the 4-day sales event. That is according to market research firm Adobe Analytics. Other major retailers, including Walmart and Target, are all getting in on the action this week, holding rival sales of their own. For over a century, the technology used to monitor and measure earthquakes has remained largely unchanged. Well, now scientists are using some modern sensors to get more accurate and widespread information. Brian Hackney shows us how fiber lines, the type that give us access to the internet, are helping Bay Area seismologists.
We're at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory at Building 121.
And inside Building 121,
we monitor earthquakes.
Gene Ichinose and Tim Brandt monitor them inside this room using this machine, the interrogator.
What's it interrogating?
The fiber.
Fiber optic cable, that is, which Tim taped to the floor, and even the lightest tap is digitally recorded. And that's a big step forward.
So we're at Coyote Point in San Mateo, and this is a seismic station.
USGS seismologist Anne-Marie Bolte climbs toward more familiar gear.
And this is the more traditional way of measuring seismic waves?
Yes, this is a very high-quality instrument.
This equipment gives us the familiar traces of ground motion, but there is a downside.
Right here, we have one recording at one location. It only tells us about the geology right here.
But hundreds of miles of fiber optic cable already buried under the Bay Area not only brings us the internet, it brings us thousands of virtual seismometers measuring the tiniest tickle of ground motion.
After we plugged this in our experiment, we noticed immediately vehicles drive around city streets. We saw a Caltrain, and then we saw our first earthquake.
We are coming on the air tonight with an earthquake that rattled the East Bay.
We recorded the Dublin earthquake, interrogating the full 80 kilometers.
That means instead of a few seismometers recording local shaking, Gene's machine recorded ground motion every 30 feet along 50 miles of fiber optic cable buried from San Francisco to Sunnyvale, the equivalent of 8,000 seismometers.
This is probably one of the best recorded earthquakes with such density and scale.
And more data could someday mean more insight. Take Northridge. Maybe $50 billion worth of damage in 30 seconds and a total surprise.
It's on a previously unknown fault.
Is it possible to uncover a hidden fault with this new system?
Yeah, it's possible to uncover a hidden fault because we're getting, again, information on a very fine scale.
Another tremendous upside of fiber, it's cheaper. Installing this single traditional seismometer costs about $100,000. For the same money, the interrogator virtually installs thousands.
Fiber's already in the ground. You don't have to do any digging.
And since the buried fiber might be much closer to the next epicenter,
For earthquake early warning, we want to catch an earthquake right as it's beginning.
And every millisecond counts.
Every millisecond counts, and then we can get you a warning a little bit quicker that waves are coming to your house.
the more modern technique is shaking up seismology.
It is. It's a really exciting concept, and it's going to open all kinds of doors for really creative, interesting studies for us to understand the Earth better.
Well, the scientists tell us this technology was developed at Stanford almost a decade ago and is now being rolled out by the officials at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. Well, the Bay is getting ready for night one of the Weekend's shows in Santa Clara. The Weekend bringing his After Hours Till Dawn tour to Levi Stadium tonight and tomorrow. The opening acts will be Playboy Cardi and Mike Dean. The Weekend holds the record at Levi Stadium for most shows by a male solo artist. Thanks for streaming CBS News Bay Area. I'm Ann Makovic, and be sure to tune in to our afternoon edition today. I'm going to be interviewing San Francisco Mayor Daniel Lurie as he hits 6 months in office. That is at noon, streaming right here. We're going to be right back with your First Alert forecast and another look at your top stories.